She's a certified yapper, but looks good doing it.
Gabby, I love you.
It must suck being that hot.
What up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Gabby. Hi. Hey. If you're new here, hi. And if you're not new here and you're not yet subscribed, you subscribe right now because I don't know what you're doing. On the road to 5K, we're almost there. Let's get to it. If you're not following my socials, my TikTok and Instagram are down below. Ooh, British. Today, we're going to be reacting to 10 wrestlers who nuked their own career. So let's get to it.
Hey, Sean. What, Rays? Your heart still beating? Yeah. Here, take half of this.
Now, some of the biggest names in professional wrestling have some of the darkest secrets behind closed doors. Or while there are big names who have been able to maintain their careers despite their controversy, plenty of careers were damaged because they built up a bad reputation in the wrestling business. These are wrestlers who had the potential to be something big in WWE, but they squandered their opportunity for one reason or another. Join us now as WrestleMania looks at 10 of the biggest screw-ups in professional wrestling. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Also check out our new videos on WrestleMania XL. Number 1. The Brian Kendrick. Many peg Brian Kendrick as the next Shawn Michaels. Vince McMahon and company were never big fans of cruiserweights, but wrestlers like Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero proved that it was possible to be a main event star in WWE. It seemed that WWE was going to make Kendrick the next big thing as well. After WWE broke up London and Kendrick, the Virginia native came back as the Brian Kendrick with Ezekiel Jackson as his heavy. Kendrick got a couple of wins here and there, and he was even in the first ever championship scramble match where he was WWE champion for a couple of minutes. However, Kendrick loved marijuana. Reportedly, the company warned Kendrick numerous times about him failing his drug test for marijuana, but the former WWE star just didn't listen. That championship scramble was Kendrick's first and only taste at the WWE title, as he became an enhancement talent once the match was said and done. Kendrick was then released a year later because of his refusal to stop smoking marijuana. The former WWE star would return to the company 7 years later, but he was never given that main event treatment that was planned in 2008. Number 2.
I met Brian Kendrick at a wrestling show in New Orleans. I did a TikTok with him. I'm going to put it here. Go follow my TikTok and my Instagram so y'all can see the exclusive content that I be putting out there. But yeah, I talked to him. He was so sweet. He was so nice.
Sexy Star. A Sexy Star is a Mexican professional wrestler and former AAA star. However, she's a very controversial figure in the wrestling industry. There are several reasons why WWE would likely never hire her. One of the main reasons is due to the Rosemary incident, as at the Triplemania 25 event in 2017, Sexy Star legitimately injured Impact Wrestling star Rosemary during a match by applying an armbar too forcefully and holding it even after the match was over. This was widely seen as a deliberate and unsafe act, a major breach in trust in professional wrestling where performers have to rely on one another to protect each other. The act was condemned by numerous wrestling promotions and figures, including WWE veterans like Mick Foley and Road Dogg. Not only that, but promotions such as Impact Wrestling, Lucha Underground, and AAA all distanced themselves from her after the incident. But even after she issued a statement emphasizing that this kind of behavior was unacceptable, she was viewed as untrustworthy and dangerous to work with. Number 3. ACH. ACH.
Yeah, why would you do that? I understand, sometimes you can be in the moment, things happen, but common sense, get your mind right.
aka Jordan Miles, is a very interesting case study. The former WWE star was moving up the NXT card as the company booked him to win the Breakout tournament in 2019. He didn't win the NXT championship when he fought Adam Cole, but officials saw something in Miles and seemingly planned on giving him a solid push going forward. But all that was killed once Miles spoke out about the controversial shirt that the company released. It was Jordan's name surrounded by the shape of his mouth, with many people saying that it resembled blackface. Miles was vocal about this, and WWE pushed back by shifting the blame, noting that Jordan approved of the design. Nevertheless, WWE eventually pulled the shirt from the WWE shop, but that seemingly wasn't enough for him. He aggressively accused the company of racism and even exploded on Ring of Honor and Jay Lethal. He notably called Lethal Uncle Tom, which drew plenty of criticism after many sided with him on the controversial shirt. But that didn't stop there. Jordan doubled down on his views on the WWE with a profanity-laced tirade when he claimed to quit the company due to refusing to work for racists. WWE eventually confirmed that they released Miles from his contract, and it's probably a safe bet to assume that you'll never see Miles in a WWE ring ever again. Number 4. Big Cass. Enzo Amore wasn't the only man known for his backstage attitude. When you look at the former Big Cass, you can understand why Vince McMahon likely considered him as a future main eventer. Big Cass was tall. That was a pretty big deal for Vince McMahon. Enzo and Cass were a popular duo since joining forces in NXT, but that's mostly due to the gift of the gab that God gave Mr. Amore. But Vince was determined to make Cass a solo act and broke up the duo in 2017. He squashed Enzo during their feud and got a huge win over the Big Show at SummerSlam 2017. Then he tore his ACL, which put him out of action for over 8 months. And he came back and feuded with Daniel Bryan, and surprisingly he lost both of his matches decisively to the former WWE champion. But then Big Cass was released shortly after his Money in the Bank match against Bryan. It was a genuine shock as WWE seemed to be high on Big Cass, but Sports Illustrated first reported that Cass was released due to behavioral issues. It was cited that he was heavily drunk during the company's annual European tour, which resulted in some attitude problems, and it was also noted that Cass was disobeying orders from Mr. McMahon himself. One example of this is during a segment with a little person on SmackDown. Now this was supposed to be a typical wrestler mocks his or her opponent by bringing out an impersonator, and it often ends in a beatdown, but Big Cass went further than that. Cass himself said that it was the worst decision he's ever made. He mocked the little person and he hit him with the big boot. That was all planned. However, what was not planned was him continuing the beatdown. Big Cass has since repaired his image in wrestling thanks to his run in TNA and AEW, but there's a strong chance that the former WWE star would have become a world champion if he didn't make that one mistake. Number 5. Velvetine Dream. Patrick Clark surprised everyone when he made his NXT debut as the Velvetine Dream.
It's sad to see someone like Velvetine Dream, who was so different and who could have been great because he was so different, just ruin their own career. Certain things are just not meant for certain people, so.
The Velveteen Dream represented everything a WWE superstar should be, a larger-than-life character who was a solid in-ring worker and solid on the mic. He was only 25 at the time as well. Clark had a bright future as a WWE star until several allegations started surfacing. In April of 2020, Clark was accused of sending indecent images to underage boys on Instagram. The former NXT star outright denied these claims, and Triple H stated that he investigated the claims and didn't find anything. However, the details behind the investigation are murky, as one of the accusers stated that WWE never contacted him for the review. Nevertheless, Clark wasn't fired because of these claims, but it was certainly awkward having him back on NXT television. That awkwardness ended on May 20th, 2021 as WWE released him from his contract. Clark has since blamed fans for getting him fired. In fact, the 29-year-old went on to an angry tirade earlier this year blaming fans for ruining his professional wrestling career. But to Clark's credit, the allegations were just that, allegations. He was never charged for any crimes. However, reports state that the Velveteen Dream wasn't fired because of these allegations. It all stemmed from his backstage behavior, as several sources claim that Dream's NXT persona mirrored in reality. According to Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Clark rubbed a lot of people the wrong way backstage. The report claimed that the accusations had nothing to do with Clark's release, and one incident with a top NXT star was the final nail in the coffin. Could we ever see Velveteen Dream back in WWE? Right now, after his angry tirade calling out WWE, it's very possible we'll never see him back in the WWE ring again. Number 6. Tessa Blanchard. Tessa Blanchard is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world, but unfortunately for Blanchard, anyone who only watches WWE may never know her name. Blanchard is the daughter of WWE Hall of Famer Tully Blanchard. She spent some time on the independent scene until 2016 when she made a debut against Alexa Bliss on NXT. Blanchard was used as enhancement talent during a brief time, but many assumed that she would be given a chance to shine in the first ever Mae Young Classic. She wasn't, as Blanchard was actually eliminated in the first round, but a Mae Young Classic match against Kairi Sane was the last time she stepped into a WWE ring. Many were quite shocked that she wasn't signed to a WWE deal, as a second-gen star was a talented athlete. However, rumors soon surfaced about her poor attitude backstage. That came to light in January 2020. After the Mae Young Classic, Blanchard signed to Impact Wrestling. The second-gen star was then pushed hard in both the Knockouts and men's division. In fact, Blanchard was scheduled to challenge Sami Callihan for the Impact World Championship before the wrestling world opened the floodgates on her horrid behavior. It all seemed to start when Blanchard said on social media, "Hey women, try supporting one another. Cool things happen." But then multiple women across different promotions fired back at Tessa by accusing Blanchard of bullying and racism. Tessa denied all the accusations, even though the wrestler that she was racist to, La Rosa Negra, spoke about the very incident in great detail. Despite the backlash she received, Impact officials still pushed her forward and booked her to win the Impact World Championship. But that decision bit them in the ass when Blanchard refused to return to Slammiversary to drop the belt. Reports claim that the second-gen star didn't send in promos from Mexico and started the tension between the two sides. Blanchard went on a leave of absence due to COVID-19, however she was still the world champion at this time and the two sides couldn't agree to a new deal, so Impact officials stripped her of the world title and fired her. This was the final nail in the coffin. Despite AEW and WWE having the ability to hire the former Impact World Champion, none of the major companies would touch her. It seemed as if Tessa's wrestling days were numbered, however, Impact made the surprising decision to bring her back in December 2024. While the stain on her name hasn't been completely erased, Tessa is in a better position than she was a couple of years ago. Number 7. Eively. Perhaps the biggest screw-up in Tough Enough history is Eively Valez. While Velvetine Dream squandered his opportunity, Eively's attitude is what kept her from...
I didn't know that the lady that she was accused of being racist towards, confirmed the story. Because I know Chelsea Green had mentioned something about her whenever all that stuff was going down, and WWE, NXT girlies did the same. So, I don't know.
Ever reaching high-level status. The 36-year-old first came onto the pro wrestling radar in 2011's Tough Enough and was seen as one of the contestants with strong potential. Eively was eliminated, but she still signed a deal with WWE. She had a couple of matches in FCW and NXT, but she was released in August of 2012. According to the former WWE star herself, she left the company because of the misconduct from head trainer Bill DeMott. Plenty of past talents complained about DeMott's behavior, so Eively's reasoning sounded justified. But then, Eively headed over to TNA, and surprisingly, the former WWE star failed to win the Gut Check Challenge. It still isn't clear why TNA opted against signing her, but the promotion was notably not interested in her when they started using Lucha Underground talent, which says a lot given Eively's talent. Her time in Lucha Underground did wonders for her career. She was an excellent performer, and she showcased that she had the ability to be a top star if given a chance.
I loved Lucha Underground. I remember binge watching all the seasons, and Eively was one of my favorites, along with I did like Sexy Star too, and Prince Puma. John Morrison was in there with his wife or whatever. But yeah, I remember really liking her though, Eively.
Unfortunately, rumors started circulating about a bad attitude, but that didn't become noticeable until her stint in AEW. She was finally being given a chance in a top promotion, but her downfall started with the sandbagging incident with her and Thunder Rosa. These two had a match on Dynamite for the NWA World Women's Championship, and it was noticeable that Eively was no-selling some of Rosa's moves, and both women went into shoot mode when it came to strikes. Eively even admitted to no-selling Rosa's moves herself, but she claimed that Rosa was being disrespectful and responded accordingly. She didn't last long in AEW, and she was fired in 2021. She claimed that she was mistreated during her time in the promotion, but several sites, including Fightful, reported that Eively had well-known disagreements with agents. Eively refuses to acknowledge that she's difficult to work with, but several people have come out and claimed their displeasure working with the former AEW star. One of those names is Jack Evans, who spent time working with Eively in Lucha Underground. He called her out for her quote-unquote difficult personality, and it was cited as the reason he wanted out of Lucha Underground. It's a shame as Eively is a very talented performer who would have been a great benefit to any women's division, but sadly it seems that no other major company wants anything to do with her. Number 8. Matt Bourne. Drug addictions are no joke. Some of the best people in the world have succumbed to drugs, and the former WWE star was unfortunately one of them. Bourne previously had a stint in WWE during the late 80s, and that didn't go down too well. But on his second return, Bourne came back as Doink the Clown. The gimmick surged in popularity, but Bourne would only serve as a character for 1 year before his abrupt exit. That's because he was a full-on addict at this point. His ex-wife Michelle James stated on his episode of Dark Side of the Ring that she doesn't even know if Matt ever wrestles sober. His main drugs were cocaine and weed, with the former being the main cause for his firing, as Bam Bam Bigelow informed officials about Matt smoking marijuana. Doink the Clown was never going to main event WrestleMania, but he was super over with the crowd, and he was definitely a fun act during this period in wrestling. Sadly, Bourne just couldn't overcome his demons and died of an accidental overdose in 2013. Number 9. Teddy Hart. Teddy Hart is the saddest case of a potential main event star never even coming close to reaching his potential. At this point in his career, Hart is more known for his controversy outside of the ring than anything he's done in his 20+ years in professional wrestling. Believe it or not, Teddy still wrestles, but it's in a no-name promotion in Canada. Teddy Hart started wrestling when he was 15 years old, and the kid had talent, and it wasn't a surprise that WWE snatched him up as soon as he turned 18. But two things also hampered Hart's career: his drug addiction and attitude problems. The latter is the reason why he was fired from WWE.
What's up with these wrestlers having attitude problems? Like, y'all should be grateful that to be in the position that y'all are in. Like, if y'all don't know, like, I work with indie wrestlers. I do backstage interviewing for a wrestling promotion in Louisiana. Like, you know, it's hard. A lot of them work. And, like, they've been doing this for, like, 15 years and they're, like, still not signed. You know how hard it is to get fucking signed? And you have some wrestlers who have the biggest egos ever. Like, be grateful for where you're at, bruh. There's people who've been working longer than you probably, or just as long, who are just still not in the position that they want to be in. Ugh, I hate that.
WWE in 2002. Hart worked the indies and, well, he did better than his time in WWE, kind of. He started working for Ring of Honor in 2003, but that stint didn't last long due to several fights backstage in an infamous cage match where he repeatedly jumped off the cage without any consent beforehand. Hart did make the jump over to TNA, and guess what? He was fired because of another backstage altercation. This time that man was against a straight-edge superstar himself, CM Punk. WWE did give Hart one more opportunity in 2005, and the Canadian managed to work down in FCW for 3 years. But Hart's attitude got the best of him again and again, and the company fired him in 2007. The most notable thing Hart has done in his career was down in Major League Wrestling, where he formed a new version of the Hart Foundation with Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Brian Pillman Jr. Once he left MLW in 2019, he made sporadic appearances in various indie promotions, but his name was kept in the spotlight due to his legal troubles. In the past 5 years, Teddy has been arrested for assault, evading arrest, DUI, possession of a controlled substance, and sexual assault. There's even a very strange case where Hart's ex-girlfriend mysteriously vanished from his training camp, although Hart has yet to be arrested for anything involving Samantha Fiddler. Hart is an extremely talented performer who simply got his own way. His career could have resulted in a WrestleMania main event, but sadly, he'll always go down as one of the biggest missed opportunities in wrestling history. And number 10, Alberto Del Rio. You really can't have this list without the former WWE champion on it. For years, Vince McMahon was desperately trying to find a replacement for Rey Mysterio. They tried hard with Sin Cara, but that experiment failed spectacularly. However, it finally seemed that WWE had their new Rey Mysterio in Alberto Del Rio. The former WWE star had it all: looks, charisma, and he could go between the ropes. But Del Rio was never a big hit with fans, as WWE was shoving this guy down their throats. For the most part, Del Rio has had a better career than most of the people on this list, but when it comes to the former WWE star, Del Rio's name is mostly associated with controversies. The first being when Del Rio and Paige started dating. To put in simple terms, Del Rio and Paige had a very toxic relationship. Paige had claimed that Del Rio was abusive behind the scenes, and the former WWE champion has made the same claims as well. Paige was arrested for domestic violence, though she was ultimately cleared of the charge. This relationship really turned the fans against Del Rio, but this stuff was actually tame compared to what would come later. Del Rio's career didn't go further because of all of his personal baggage. Vince McMahon liked Del Rio, and he gave the man multiple world title reigns and had many more accolades, including winning the Royal Rumble and Money in the Bank. But his numerous backstage fights and no-showing summer WWE events really tanked a promising career. Del Rio had a brief resurgence when he fought in Lucha Underground and TNA Wrestling, but old habits simply don't die easily. The former WWE star was fired from TNA Impact due to no-showing the Lucha Underground vs Impact Wrestling event in 2018. Since then, he's been a mainstay in AAA and has done quite well for himself in Mexico, but AAA is the only major promotion that will use the former WWE champion, and he's been blacklisted by all other major companies. The worst of Alberto Del Rio's charges was aggravated kidnapping and sexual assault in 2020, but those charges were eventually dropped. However, they still haunt the former WWE star's career until this very day.
Dang. Oh, hey, I thought this was gonna be like this is some serious shit. Yeah, they definitely nuked their careers. Oh my god. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. If you want to see more wrestling content from me, TikTok and Instagram is the way to go. Go follow me on both. And thank you all for watching. Bye.